Okay, so today we're going to learn how to solve an absolute value inequality. So that's the big difference here. We have a less than sign today instead of an equal sign. So we're going to solve an absolute value inequality. And today, just like the last 2 days, you want the absolute value to be all by itself on this side. So we're going to try to get this all by itself. So we'll start by moving the 3 over, which will give me the absolute value of 3x minus 6, which is less than 12. So let me move this down for a second. And this is the absolute value that I have. And just like the last 2 days, we're going to split this into two sides. We're going to split this into a positive side, a positive side and a negative side, because that's how you remove these absolute value symbols. So we'll split it into a positive side and a negative side. So the positive side would just be 3x minus 6 is less than 12. And then my negative side would be 3x minus 6 is greater than 12, or negative 12. So when we switch the sign right here, we will also flip the sign right here. So that's the big thing, is to remember when you have your negative side, flip this sign. Okay. Then we'll just go through this and start solving this like normal. So I'll solve this one first. We'll add 6. And I'll have 3x is less than 18. Divide by 3. I will get x is less than 6. So that's my one answer. Then I'll solve the negative side, so we'll just add 6. So we'll get 3x is greater than negative 6. Divide by 3, and x is greater than negative 2. And that's my other answer. If I'm asked to graph these two things, this is an AND statement. So both these things would be true. So this side would be true and this side. So it's kind of like this and that. So when I'm graphing this thing on a number line, I want to pick all the x values that are less than 6. So it's going this way. And then I want to pick all the x values that are bigger than negative 2. So it's going this way. So these are all the values that I would pick for this inequality. Anything that is less than 6 or anything that is bigger than negative 2. Okay, so in my next example, I want to talk about something that would have no solution. So we talked about something that kind of bounced in between a line and had a lot of solutions. But let's talk about something that has no solutions. And before we even solve it, we're going to think about this for a second. So we are saying that an absolute value is less than negative 6. Now it's very important that I have this left side, because if this was bigger, we can have numbers bigger than negative 6, but we can't have numbers that are less than negative 6, since an absolute value has to be bigger. So this should be no solution. If I had wrote this, we would have a solution, because there are numbers, an absolute value that could be bigger than negative 6. Like 8 would be bigger than negative 6, and that would work. So it's very important that I have this sign. But I'd like to think about what would happen if we tried to solve this. So I'm going to erase this one, and we're going to try to solve the no solution, and we're just going to see what we get. And when we see what we get, it will help us figure out like why it will be a no solution, and in case we do solve one that doesn't work out, we'll be able to see what that would look like. So solving one that doesn't work out. So the first thing we would do is we would again split it down the middle. You'd get 2x minus 2 is less than negative 6. and you'd get 2x minus 2 is bigger than 6. So we would solve this, add 2, add 2. I would get 2x is less than negative 4. Need a little bit more room down here. And I would divide that by 2, divide that by 2, and I would get x is less than negative 2. So that would be one of my potential answers. And again, I'm saying potential because we know ahead of time that this shouldn't work. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. I'll have 2x is bigger than 8. Divide by 2, divide by 2, and I'll have x is greater than 4. Now let's see what kind of graph this gives us. So those are our answers. And this is an and, this is an and statement in between. So we need both to be true. So let's kind of look at and kind of think. So we would need numbers that are bigger than 4, but are less than negative 2. When you kind of graph that, you're like, okay, I need things bigger than 4, but things that are smaller than negative 2. And you don't get anything in the middle here. And this is like the uh-oh. Because you should, like this is what we want, this area, but we have to pick things that are bigger than 4 and things that are smaller than negative 2. So you don't get this middle region. So again, this shows why this would be a no solution. So the big thing to remember on this is, if you ever get an absolute value that is less than a negative number, you should pick no solution.